What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Filip Latocha, and yeah, I'm back. I made another video here on this channel. Basically had myself a few weeks off on this channel, doing some other things, still running, still working on work-related items and so forth, but I just kind of want to talk about them and just kind of give you guys a scope and kind of a glimpse of the future for the 2023 running season and some goals and expectations and things like that, including some recaps of races I've done recently. So before we get into it, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're already subscribed, watching content. Thanks so much. Love you guys a lot. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, Strava, Rumble. Just got the same video here just now, all of it being synced up over there. So backups are always good. Just remember that, friends. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, the first item I have on my list is, where have I been? Well, I think the last time I made a video, it may have been the Polish Independence Day 10K race recap. So, since then, I've kind of gone into like an off-season mindset for the first time in a little bit, just because I wanted to be more cautious about not getting injured this time around, given all the things that are kind of going on in my life, right? So, when I'm working, this job as a cyber analyst, and you got work that could happen in the middle of the night, sleep is not always too great. It's not, unfortunately, a high priority item for me at times. So the chance of injury ultimately increases. So I'm more cautious about not running too hard, too fast, too often. And in turn, it's just easier to run slower, less distance, but be consistent about running daily, for example. So that's kind of been some of the gist of things going on, where I've been training a little bit more for like a turkey trot, A to B goal kind of pace. And in a way, as we talk about the turkey trot coming up, everything kind of ended up turning out really well with that. And now that some of the work things are kind of subsiding and other things are coming up, my ability to get back into like hardcore training is going to jumpstart relatively soon, but not quite yet. Not at the time of this video. So, that's just something, if you were looking forward to that, or if I was looking forward to that, it's not quite there. It's still got to be strong, got to be patient, let some of the little sore spots on my body kind of heal up, let some of the work things finally finish up, and yeah, it'll be pretty great from there. So, of course, in the meantime, if you follow me on Instagram, I've been going to concerts, been doing some hangouts with friends and family, and it's just been Thanksgiving, so I had like a 4-day vacation, like my first vacation in a really long time, where I could just like not think about work for basically 4 days straight. So just that's something probably worth addressing a little bit later on in terms of work fatigue and like burnout and kinds of things like that. So yeah, anyways, that's kind of the gist of where I've been at this point. Speaking of Thanksgiving, I guess we can talk about my next item, which is the turkey trot. So, traditionally, since at least 2017, my friends and I have run the North Shore Turkey Trot in Highland Park, Illinois, together. Basically, we would either do the 10K, 5K, whichever one it was. I've always done the 10K because that was just a really awesome course, and it's quite an adventure. It's always been cold. It's always been a miserable, cold race, but then you would like always come back to a warm car and you would just feel great. Then you would obviously go home, take a nap, get some Thanksgiving dinner. And that was like the tradition all the time. And this time I had a break from tradition because as I was like driving around my neighborhood, I saw that there was a local turkey trot across the river from my house. So instead of doing the North Shore Turkey Trot, I ended up opting in for this 5K for the Trout Valley Turkey Trot. So that's like a different section of Algonquin, Illinois, across from the river, closer to like Cary area over there, maybe like Barrington Hills even. So I decided to go over there, a little bit closer to my house, and yeah, I had no expectations for the race. I didn't know who was going to be there. I had no idea what the course really looked like. I did have an idea that you start at like the bottom near the river, and then you go up a hill, and then you come back down a hill from a different side, and you do a few little loops, and then you kind of finish. That's all I knew about the course. So going into that course, I guess, well, before I tell you the details of it, the finish there was, I finished in the top 15 runners. I ran, I think, like a 19:05 or a 19:10 for the 5K, but Strava told me I ran almost exactly 3 miles. So there may have been like a turn or something where I cut some distance, or maybe there's a GPS issue, but ultimately the course didn't seem like it was a complete 5K, but that's okay. You know, the point there is that the race was done and it was over with and it was good. So with that turkey trot, I opted in with running with the Alpha Flies that I had used for last year's turkey trot, and it ended up actually serving really well, because this is where maybe I have to redact the statement I made many months, maybe a year ago, in regards to the Alpha Fly. Is I had said before that I don't like using it for hill runs, but I guess there's an asterisk to this. Uphill running with the Alpha Flies is quite tough, but downhill running with the Alpha Flies is pretty awesome, because you get extra cushion that's preventing additional impact on the soleus calf muscle, on your knees, on some of the other joints, because you have that air pod basically taking some of the brunt of the impact. And as a result, you have a nice squishy landing when you go downhill. Now, going uphill is still kind of rough, because you're not getting, you know, that grab into the ground as you want to climb the hill. You're getting kind of like this resistance from the air pod, and it could help you, but historically I haven't seen it help me too much. This race, it was hard to notice, because when you're going full blast, it's hard to tell when you're not going full blast up a hill, basically. So in this context, I guess from a race perspective, the Alpha Flies ended up doing really well overall. If I could change one thing, it would be probably to get a thicker pair of socks and be more fit and more in shape for hill running. I think that's what I would probably go with, because during this race, I knew that there was like a few Division 2, Division 3, maybe there was a D1 athlete in the front pack that, you know, it's all the kids that come back from college and, you know, they're home in Thanksgiving, living in the suburbs with their parents, and then they do this turkey trot together. That's kind of the idea, right? So essentially, I knew from that perspective that it was going to be a very competitive field, and I just wanted to run my own race. I didn't want to like try to, you know, get squashed or try to squash some high school athletes. I knew I wasn't in that shape, just going to have my own kind of thing, you know what I mean? So from that perspective, of course, like those guys did really well, but I wasn't too far behind them anyways, just kind of going at my own pace. And yeah, it just kind of gives you this mental thought process of, hey, if I actually got some of my house in order, as you can say, I could have been in physical shape to be more competitive against those guys. But in this particular race, I wasn't, and it is what it is. And maybe next time I'll be better prepared and a lot more mentally competitive to be able to do this race at the caliber of field that was there. So kind of backtracking on one of the points is, why wasn't I training nearly as hard as I was last year around this time, or a few months earlier leading up to this turkey trot? Because I had this whole plan on my whiteboard here of how I was going to build into the Tokyo Marathon strong based on the turkey trot plan, and then take that to jumpstart into marathon training. Well, there's a lot of things going on, and maybe some of you know if you're following the Tokyo Marathon and whatnot. But before we get there, I guess here's where, like, maybe this is going to be like minor sour grapes, so we'll see. You know, work got really busy for me. I had a lot of projects. I had some professional development in terms of studies that I'm still actively working on. And stuff like that, for the first time in my life, gets kind of like, it seeds itself in the back of my head, like, when I want to do a run or when I want to do something. It's the first time I've felt that, I don't know how to describe it. It's like the voice in your head that says, hey, you should be probably studying right now. You don't need to do this run. And like, I know way deep down inside, like, running is not just something I do for fun. That's like, it's not even routine. It's just, it's part of the day. Like, it's a non-negotiable unless I'm like injured or it's like post big race. Like, running is something you do every single day, period. So the name of the game now is trying to put a balance and trying to incorporate that running mindset of, this is a non-negotiable, we do this every single day for an hour or 1 to 2 hours a day, to my professional development studies. Because again, I watch how some of my coworkers are studying for other certifications and they're doing well, and you know, they're picking them up really quickly, they're racking them up, and I'm like struggling with just like one of them, because some days I just feel demoralized and don't want to study, or some days I'm sitting for like 2-3 hours a day. Sometimes I'll get distracted by something else. It's the usual stuff, right? And the name of the game here is to try to knock that certification out as quickly as possible, stay as focused as long as possible, study as hard as I can, and just get it over with, but then also continue professional development from there with the momentum of obtaining said certification. So that's kind of one of those other things that's also holding me back from being able to go hardcore training mode, because that study for that certification almost feels more important than running right now, even though they're both at an equal level for an apples and oranges type of reason. You know what I mean? One's work to professional development, and one is like health, mind, body, and of course, just long-term running goals. So that's another thing just worth noting. And then obviously there's like some other projects and other things going on at work, but that stuff is like part of the regular grind. I'm not too stressed about that. It's just this professional development outside of office time, or sometimes during, depending on if, my boss lets me. That's kind of also putting a hinder to my running training. And now the next piece we're going to talk about here is the Tokyo Marathon. And I wonder if this video is going to get flagged if I say anything incorrectly in the next few minutes here. I'm going to do my best to like change certain words and use different phrases, and if you kind of know what they are, great. If not, cool. So like you kind of see where I'm going with this right now. I'm going to be talking about some interesting, sensitive topics, but the Tokyo Marathon, right? So when I signed up for the Tokyo Marathon in 2019, everything was like great, everything was awesome. And then stuff in 2020 hit and the race got canceled. Well, the elites were able to run, but the average person was not able to run, so I was able to defer to 2021. Still not able to go in 2021. Deferred in 2022 because I, again, still couldn't go. And then in 2023, which is the year I'm supposed to race the Tokyo Marathon, everything is given a green light, except for a few caveats at the time of sign up. And these are some of the things that were discussed. Number one, for the people who've seen or are part of like the Tokyo Marathon group chats or have read the email, you guys already know this. But number one, Tokyo wasn't 100% open at the time of the confirmation to basically sign up. So in a way, they're still behind in terms of tourism and things like this. So they're still trying to adapt to normal operations outside of the 2020 lifestyle, I guess you can say. And when they were writing some of this stuff out, there was a lot of things that were concerning, and a lot of things that like immediately in my mind, I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm going to rebel against this immediately, because it's just A, not my nature, and two, like, we're so over this right now. Some of the other things that they wrote in their document was that you had to have a mask with you during the duration of the entire race. You didn't have to wear it, but you have to have it with you during the race. You have to carry it in some way, which immediately to me was ridiculous, because I carry as little stuff as possible when I run. Like mostly it will be like a watch, and that's it. Unless we're racing. If we're racing, I have like gels, maybe some other things, maybe like, I don't know, some other nutrition, but like to add extra stuff to carry while I'm running is a no-go for me. And the other thing that was also mentioned was that a cell phone is mandatory for the run, because a few weeks and a few days before the race and after the race, you have to label your symptoms and your condition, and you have to, provide proof of something on a card, and you have to, and if you don't have this proof of the card, you have to prove that you are not sick. I guess if I'm working around the words here properly, YouTube, come on, give me a break. So, basically, a lot of these conditions put a lot of things at risk when it comes to trying to race the Tokyo Marathon. The first thing for me that's an immediate risk is that a lot of these tourist things don't provide refunds for, the flights, for the hotels, for all sorts of other stuff. So it's immediately a massive financial risk for people who don't have potential or particular amenities that they can use while they're on site. So for example, I get free flights because I work for the airlines. So like taking the cost of an $1,800 flight round trip isn't a big deal for me, but it is for a lot of other people. So that immediately would probably create a bigger risk for them financially than it would me. But then like if you have like an Airbnb or a hotel, eating the cost of that hotel if something happens where you can't get in the country or the race is canceled, or in this particular case, let's say you're on the plane and you've been exposed to somebody who, was sick, and now the rules of the marathon is, hey, you were on the same plane as this person who was sick, you can't race because you were, in proximity of that person. I don't know 100% what their terminology is, and that's kind of the risky part, right? They don't specify that exactly. So your race can literally end. All of that training could be basically over in a moment's notice because you were unlucky on your flight. So this immediately, like I said, is creating risks that make the Tokyo Marathon a not feasible, not doable type of race in my mind, because I need certain like guarantees that I can get there safely without any risk of my race getting canceled or refunds not being issued for whatever reason, and just have a good time for the race, right? And then of course the most I guess questionable piece that doesn't get asked a lot is like, let's say you have been sick and you've been exposed, what happens then? Like, they're gonna probably keep you, my guess is you're gonna have to stay in Tokyo for 2 additional weeks, and the question there will be, who's going to fund you to stay for 2 additional weeks until, you're officially cleared to go and return to your country? And that's where, like, all this thought process, I'm like, hey, this was like the United States like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, right? Like I'm kind of over this. So I don't really want to go through this process again or go through the risk of this process in a different country, right? Because the last thing you want to do is get locked up abroad because someone got sick, or because the conditions of the race are so stringent based on the country's policy. And like, if that's the case, I respect it, but then unfortunately I will not be running Tokyo 2023. And I kind of talk about this now coincidentally because the Tokyo Marathon organization did reveal an email, or they sent us an email, I think, the other day, where they were saying that there was a lot of concerns and questions because cases were rising in like China and Tokyo. But I think maybe it got lost in translation that maybe there was a lot of backlash for this particular thing. I didn't say anything to the organization, but there is an option to defer to 2024, and I think I'm going to defer to 2024. So then the question now becomes, what happens then, right? If you have this major marathon that's going to be happening late winter, early spring, is it still happening? Well, it's kind of a yes and no question, right? Because I'm pretty sure, I'm like 95% sure I don't want to run Tokyo Marathon under the given conditions and the state of the country and its procedures at this time. So I think what's going to happen, and I've thought about this before with my coach, and we've done some research on it, is that there is going to be a couple of marathons around this time that we're going to assess. I have one contender that I really like. I won't announce it yet, just because, I don't want to make any empty promises right now, because I was psyched about Tokyo 2023. This is what, like, this entire channel was all about, was doing the Tokyo Marathon. And again, for reasons in my control, I'm choosing not to do it because of the risk involved financially for it. And, me disagreeing with some of the policies leading into the race. But the point here is that I'm still signed up for the Houston Hot Chocolate 15K in January. I'm still signed up for the Mesa Half Marathon, which I will be doing with the run club that I have out here. And all of that buildup is still going to lead to some kind of marathon. Potentially. Maybe the play will be to get into half marathon shape with a really good half marathon time and really good half marathon fitness, which then can be translated later on as a jump start for your marathon season. So there's a couple of options as to how to play this, but as I understand it right now, Tokyo is kind of out of my books, but keeping a marathon or a half marathon domestically around the same time is like 100% chance still. So that being said, it is a little disappointing that Tokyo is kind of out of my books for now, but soon. It'll happen eventually, and I think what's going to happen also as a thought process is to get into the London Marathon draft, because at least London's a little bit better about their things right now, and I know, of course, free flights and things like that. My family has been like kind of nagging me about this of, hey, we should all go on vacation sometime. And they're like, hey, where can you fly us for free right now? And I'm like, well, you know, I don't know. We can go wherever. Just name the place. Like, be spontaneous. It's going to be great. So, London Marathon is kind of in my scopes right now as well. I have to do the lottery, which I think opens up relatively soon. I don't know if it's this month or in January. But the point is, there may still be a marathon in scope here, depending on how the scheduling of things works. So that's kind of where we're at right now in terms of running. I have to do a run still. It's pretty much dark right now, so I have to, like, you know, put on a headlamp, go run, do my thing, put on a few miles today, and just kind of chill realistically. But yes, I will be jump starting my training relatively soon for some distance work. And I'll have some more content related to that. Maybe like a follow along with running. Maybe I'll get my drone finally up and running to show you guys some footage. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming up. It's just I needed a few weeks off from YouTube to focus on some professional development, some stuff associated with work, and just really realistically just kind of balancing life out and just trying to get some sleep. So I think I'll leave the video here. This might be a long rant, or maybe just a weird, you know, word salad for some people, but if you enjoy just listening to my voice and it's peaceful, great, then it's a great reason to watch this video. If you made it to the end of the video, ask me about my friend Ligma Johnson. Is that the guy from Twitter? I don't know. We'll say his name was Ligma something. Make up the last name and just ask me about my friend Ligma X. Let's do that. So, thanks for watching this video, and more content coming up real soon, I promise. Lots of cool stuff definitely in the works. It's just need to get this break out of the way, and it's go time. So I'll see you guys in the next one.